Star Wars Jedi 3 is really happening, and this time it is not just about getting a new game. This time, the real issue is how Cal Kestis' story is going to end, and more importantly, the new leaks, new rumors, and new claims that have been circulating around the game in recent weeks have pushed the hype to an unbelievable level. So today, we are not just going to look at the official statements. Today, we are going to talk about everything floating around online, because the picture forming around Jedi 3 right now is genuinely very interesting. On one side, there are strong official signs showing that the game is in development. On the other side, there are some very striking claims going around about a white lightsaber, family themes, dark side conflict, new combat stances, and even a possible reveal date. And honestly, while some of these sound completely crazy, some of them do not feel impossible at all. Let's start with the strongest point first. Jedi 3 is no longer just a fan theory. Cameron Monaghan, who plays Cal Kestis, had already said before that they were working on the third game. After that, EA also clearly stated that Respawn was developing the final chapter of the Star Wars Jedi story. So yes, the third game is real. The real question here is not whether the game exists. The real question is how big this finale is going to be. And I think that is the most critical part of all this, because the phrase final chapter is not some random wording they chose. It directly means we are heading toward the conclusion of Cal Kestis' story. So Respawn cannot make just an ordinary sequel here. Players are no longer only expecting new planets, new boss fights, or better graphics. People want a finale that feels emotionally powerful, big, and unforgettable. And honestly, the size of this series already proves that. The journey that began with Fallen Order became much bigger with Survivor. The player numbers shared by EA also show that this series has reached millions of people. So, Jedi 3 is no longer just another game. It has become one of the most important final tests in modern Star Wars gaming. But of course, there are also question marks behind the scenes. Stig Asmussen, who played a very important role in the first two games of the series, leaving Respawn created a major question in the minds of fans, because departures like that can sometimes seriously affect the tone of final games. So a lot of people are now asking this: will the same spirit remain, or is Jedi 3 going to have a slightly different identity? And this is exactly where the leaks come in. The most attention-grabbing part of the leaks that have been circulating online in recent weeks is the idea that the game is going to move in a much more personal and much more emotional direction. According to the claims, Jedi 3 will continue where Survivor left off, and this time, Cal's story will not only be about saving the galaxy. It will also focus much more on heavier themes like family, loss, responsibility, and inner balance. The loudest part of those leaks, though, has been the details about Cal Kestis' family life. Some rumors say that Kata is going to play a much more central role in the story, and some even go further, claiming that Cal may have a biological daughter. Let me say this very clearly. Right now, that information is completely rumor. There is absolutely nothing official confirming it. But even so, it is not hard to understand why the internet has gotten so excited about it. Because Jedi Survivor already pushed Cal to a completely different place. The younger, more lost version of the character from Fallen Order was gone. In his place, we got a Cal carrying heavier trauma, more exhausted, and under much more pressure. So the idea that the third game might go even deeper into his emotional world honestly makes a lot of sense. In other words, while the family theme may sound too dramatic at first, it does not really clash with the direction the series has already been heading in. Another big claim is that the game is going to deal with the dark side much more openly. And honestly, I think this is one of the most believable rumors out there. Because we already saw in the final sections of Survivor how intensely Cal was confronting anger, loss, and revenge. In fact, there were moments in that game where you could very clearly feel the darkness inside him rising to the surface. So, if Jedi 3 turns that into an even bigger issue, I would not be surprised at all. And the idea of serenity, the idea of reaching peace and finding inner balance, which has also appeared in the leaks, fits perfectly into that. If Respawn is really moving in that direction, then this game may not just be an action-heavy finale. It could also become a much more mature story about who Cal is, what he is becoming, and how he deals with the darkness inside him. And honestly, I would really like to see the game go in that direction. Of course, one of the most attention-grabbing details in all of these rumors is the White Lightsaber. Yes, that has been one of the biggest topics lately. According to the claim, we may see a White Lightsaber at some point in the game. Whether it ends up being Cal's own weapon or belongs to another character, symbolically it would carry a very powerful meaning. Because in the Star Wars universe, a white lightsaber represents things like purification, balance, and breaking free from darkness. And honestly, if that turns out to be true, I think it could become one of the most unforgettable moments in Jedi 3. Just imagine it. Cal comes right to the edge of darkness, then pulls himself back, finds his own path, And we see all of that expressed through a symbol as powerful as a white lightsaber. That would not just be a visually cool moment. It would also be an unbelievably strong scene that summarizes his entire journey in a single image. But again, I need to stress this. For now, this is only a leak. There is also a lot to talk about on the gameplay side. One of the biggest new ideas mentioned in the leaks is a new combat style called the double blaster stance. Survivor already expanded the stance system in a serious way and added much more variety to the combat. So I think it is completely possible that they would want to take that system even further in the third game, especially when you consider that Respawn has clearly been trying to build an action series that does not just repeat itself. The idea of a new stance system makes a lot of sense. And honestly, that kind of stance would also fit the tone of Jedi 3. If Cal is in a harsher, more morally gray, and more aggressive place in this game, then his fighting style should reflect that too. So this is not just about gameplay variety. It is also about expressing the character's mental state through combat. That is why these new stance rumors are not just a mechanical detail. They may also be directly connected to the story's tone. The more controversial subject is the moral choice system. Some leaks say the game will give the player choices at certain moments, like sparing or killing a character. At first glance, that sounds like a really interesting idea, because it could be a strong way of tying Cal's struggle with the dark side directly into gameplay. But those same leaks also say that those choices will not actually change the ending. And I think that is where we need to be careful. If choices exist, but their consequences stay very surface level, then some players may find the whole system unnecessary. But if it is done right, it could strengthen the atmosphere of the game a lot. So it really depends on how it is implemented. Maybe the choices do not change the ending, but they still help the player feel Cal's character development in a more direct way. That is why, even though this claim is questionable, it is still very interesting. Now let's get to the reveal and release date rumors. One of the most talked about possibilities lately has been that the game could be shown around Star Wars Day, which is May 4. These leaks suggest that even if we do not get a big trailer that day, we could at least get a logo, a short teaser, or some kind of official post. And honestly, when you look at the date, it sounds very logical. Because for a project like this, it is hard to imagine a more symbolic day than May 4. But at the same time, we should not forget past examples, because similar speculation has happened before ahead of major Star Wars events. Especially around the Game Awards in 2025, a lot of people thought a new Jedi game or a big KOTOR project might be revealed. In the end, the expectations shifted elsewhere. So in the Star Wars world, rumor traffic can sometimes get bigger than the actual reveal itself. That is why we should not make the same mistake with Jedi 3. Sometimes the same leak gets reposted across multiple sites, and that can create the illusion that there are many separate sources, when in reality, everyone is packaging the same core leak under different headlines. And honestly, something like that is happening with the latest wave of Jedi 3 rumors too. So yes, there are exciting details out there, but a lot of them are feeding off the same chain of speculation. Even so, I have to say this. There is a reason these leaks do not feel like they came completely out of nowhere. Because Survivor really did prepare an incredibly strong foundation for a third game. Cal's psychological state, the presence of Kata, the bond with Merrin, and the emotional weight left behind after Bode, all of that already opened the door to a much more personal finale. That is why when people online read these leaks, they react with, yeah, I can actually see this happening. One of the things I am personally most curious about is Merrin's role in this game. There are not many very clear leaks about her right now, but a huge part of the fanbase expects Merrin to have a very important place in the story. Because she is one of the characters who best represents Cal's humanity, his emotional side, and his hope for the future. So if Jedi 3 is really going to lean into themes like family, balance, and serenity, then I think they absolutely have to use Merrin in a strong way. Another big question is the technical side of the game, because even though Survivor was a much-loved game, it also got serious criticism at launch because of its performance issues. So with Jedi 3, the expectation is not only big on the story side, people also want a much cleaner release this time. That means Respawn needs to deliver a technically stronger final game too, because a finale this big should not end up being overshadowed by performance problems. Honestly, I do not think Jedi 3 is going to be some ordinary sequel, because there is too much pressure on it. The fanbase for this series is huge. Cal Kestis has now become one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars gaming, and Respawn knows that. So this game needs to feel big, both emotionally and in terms of gameplay. If they try to play it too safe or too small, people will notice immediately. So right now, the big picture looks like this. The game is real. It is in development. It will be the finale of Cal Kestis' story. Beyond that, all the things people are talking about, the White Lightsaber, family themes, dark side rise, new stances, moral choices, and a possible reveal date, are all still at the rumor level. But some of those rumors do feel genuinely possible because of the direction the series has already taken. And that is exactly where the excitement begins. And honestly, I think that uncertainty is exactly what makes Jedi 3 so interesting right now, because we are not dealing with a completely empty field of wild speculation. But we also do not have a fully official picture yet either. There is this very interesting gray area in the middle. And that gray area is what keeps the videos, theories, forums, and fan discussions alive all the time. So it really feels like we are going to have a lot more reasons to keep talking about this game. My feeling right now is this. If Respawn can handle Cal's internal conflict, the family side of his story, and his struggle with darkness in a really strong way, then Jedi 3 will not just be a good Star Wars game. It could very easily become the most emotional and most unforgettable game in the series. But of course, for that to happen, they need to be very careful both with the story and with the technical side of the game. Now let me throw the main question over to you. Do you think Cal Kestis really goes right to the edge of the dark side in this final game? And if the White Lightsaber rumor turns out to be true, do you think that would become one of the most iconic moments in the series? Be sure to write it in the comments. And if you want more videos like this covering game news, leaks, rumors, theories, and detailed analysis, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because it really looks like Star Wars Jedi 3 is going to be talked about a lot more in the coming period. And we are going to keep following every new leak, every new rumor, and every new update together. See you in the next video, and take care.